So Ash, as I said to you, so for me, the kettlebell personally is more than just a ball with a handle. So from your perspective, so what is the single most unique training quality? So is it the leverage center of mass, maybe the grip that demands our holding, or the dynamic nature so that the kettlebell offers us in rather comparing to the traditional barbell or dumbbell that simply cannot replicate? And why is this quality so essential for building resilient strength to you? So what do you think?
It's actually two of your points. It's
Mm-hmm.
two of your points. So grip is a major fundamental part of why I love them, because every single exercise that you do with a kettlebell will train your grip, and grip is
Yeah.
fundamental towards life. And there's so many studies around grip training now and how it has a massive benefit towards your health. And it seems to me like it should be non-negotiable with everyone's
Yeah.
training in that regard. But it's also the dynamic element of this implement is so difficult to replicate. It's quite astounding where even the most basic exercise of the kettlebell swing, is one of the most ballistic exercises
Yeah.
you can do. And you look at this, you look at the snatch as well. All it is explosive power. And if you don't have power, you're not going to complete the movement, no matter how much technique work you do. And it's astounding to me, no matter how many exercises I've done with the barbell, I've never had that same replication. I don't
Yeah.
even know if that's a word, but wonderful. It, because like with the conjugate method, which I'm assuming
Yeah.
you know of as well, I
Yeah.
love the conjugate method, and the dynamic effort method within it
Yeah.
is fantastic. And yet I did that with deadlifts. I still didn't have the same return I
Yeah.
did with kettlebells.
And this is
It's
actually
amazing.
what unveils also my demand of just doing, because the periodization, and that we all know is a backbone of any serious strength and conditioning planning out there. So when you look at those classical models, like you said, linear, undulating, conjugated, so where in that macro cycle does maybe the kettlebell truly shines? So is it purely maybe a general physical preparedness uh, that you're using as a tool, or have you successfully leveraged high tension kettlebell training for maximal strength blocks? Perhaps maybe as a means of reducing systematic fatigueness, or how do you using it actually? How do you utilize in the periodization models?
I believe kettlebells can be used within a conjugate manner. And because conjugate is, if you don't know what conjugate is, it was a method that was founded by Louis Simmons, who was the owner and
Yeah,
founder of Westside Barbell. And conjugate is kind of the foundation of my programming. And within kettlebells, or within conjugate, excuse me, anything can be made into a max effort movement. Anything can be made into a dynamic effort move. You don't doesn't need to
yeah,
just be a bar. So you could have a 24 kilo kettlebell and you could do an overhead press with a 10-second
yeah,
eccentric. That could be
yeah,
your max effort. And I how I tend to do it is within my clients' programming as well. They will have a max effort variation. So it might be an anchored strict press. So you have to have a deadlift in between your legs. You have to pick that kettlebell up. Sorry, kettlebell in between your legs. You have to deadlift it up, clean another kettlebell into the front rack, and then overhead press into the top end position. You build to a 1 rep max. And then after that, we would do back offsets, which will often be explosive based movements like snatch. So they might do 10 sets of 3 reps with a kettlebell. So, and then on the flip side, I've got clients that still use the traditional barbell within the
yeah.
conjugate method. I believe linear progression can also be obviously created with kettlebells. You do more repetitions, you would keep increasing the weight. But it can be utilized in so many different ways. You just have to think about it in an unorthodox manner,
Yeah.
excuse the pun. Um, but you have to broaden your horizons in how you approach training rather than thinking the barbell is
So maybe
life.
with kind of athlete are you dealing with, and what is the fitness level of that athlete per se? So this is also very interesting because, for example, you also coached an athletes throughout the Great Britain powerlifting stage. and where the barbell is practically a king, a dominant tool. So how do you convince those people who are aspiring lifters that spending time with kettlebell is not a distraction? So give me maybe a concrete example of a kettlebell exercise, and maybe where you are programming them into directly improving their specific component of the squat, bench, or deadlift, or any other movement. So
Uh,
kettlebell.
Kettlebell swing. The kettlebell swing, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the movement for powerlifters. I had a client who he weighed 75 kilo in body weight, and when he first started with me, he had about
Wow.
160-ish kilo deadlift, and it was okay. It was okay. I don't mean that offensively to anyone, by the way. But like as a powerlifter, you know, he had his sights set on very high goals, and I said to him, "Give me 6 months." And he was like, okay. But I said, the thing is, you need to trust everything I say to you and do everything I say for you to do. And one of the things was every single day he did kettlebell swings. Every single 7 days a week for 6 months, he did kettlebell swings. And it varied between 50 reps and 500 reps. And he believed everything he said. And we barely touched his deadlift. Barely touched it. We did some speed sessions, and because his technique was absolutely amazing. Guess what he pulled 6 months later?
Well, probably his PR, of course.
225 kilo.
That's amazing. That's amazing, yeah.
That he was ingraining that movement pattern because the kettlebell swing is the top end range of a deadlift. That's how you've got to look at it. And that hinge is so it's massive, and people don't realize it. And there's so many people that squat the deadlift, and I teach the deadlift as you leg press the world away. It's a reverse leg press. That's how you want to think about it. Fix your hips in that position. But leading back to your question before I digress, the other areas in which I got them to utilize, and him especially, was his core or his trunk wasn't strong enough. He kept on folding in his squats, and it was folding in a way where it was actually in the middle of the midsection, and I wasn't too happy about that. So what I did was he did regular front rack carries. That would be between single arm and bilateral and unilateral. And he also did a lot of briefcase carries with kettlebells, because kettlebells obviously are perfect for the front rack carry, and they're really nice for the briefcase. They're just comfortable. They're a nice implement to carry, and that as well had massive benefits for him, and not only in his training but life as well, because he had a very physical job, and it really helped him out there. So that's probably, because you could give snatches. The problem with snatches is the risk to reward. Your powerlifter, you're benching, you're squatting, you're deadlifting. You don't need to worry about throwing something over your head, but it still has benefits.
And it's very progressively good for the whole posterior change here. But as you said, the kettlebell swing is very truthful power development tool. But mostly we know that the kettlebell swing is also frequently related to a cardio session. So for your athletes in a sport demanding like rugby or competitive grappling, so how do you coach and how do you program the swing to maximize its power output and explosiveness? So what are the key distinguish here, or the cues, or maybe even the load selection that you're using it? So when you use the kettlebell swing as a power primer versus just a conditioning finisher exercise here.
So it all comes down to the dead start. The dead start is the thing that it removes all momentum within kettlebell exercises. So if I want one of my grapplers to start improving his explosive power within his hips, you're going to do 5 sets of potentially between 5 to 10 reps of dead start swings. It's going to be a heavy load, and if your gym doesn't have heavy kettlebells, you're going to do it unilaterally with 224s, and it's going to be really heavy.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, so you can just continue. I think it just maybe there was a small disruption in the connection.
My apologies there. And then that would be really high density work. And from there, their conditioning stuff could be as simple as 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. It could be as simple as a Tabata, one of the best conditioning timings I believe is out there when you attack it properly. So if it's going to be for explosive power, it's going to be always dead
Okay.
starts. And I think it's so important. It creates the tension throughout the body that you need. You need to be able to go from A to B as explosively as possible, especially within grappling. It's massive because grappling is going from fluidity to isometric to
Yeah.
fluidity again. And that is essentially what a dead start swing is, for example. You go from the start to the swing, back down to the start again. And it kind of links to sandbags, but we won't go into that. It'll be
Yeah,
for
of
another
course.
day.
But also, from a programming perspective, how do you differentiate between maybe training for a pure metabolic conditioning, where we put the energy system development on the forefront, and the training for strength endurance, for example, when the ability we need to sustain the force? So, what specific kettlebell exercises or rep schemes would you use to shift those training regimens or effects from a high rep swing that blast maybe the lunge or the VO2s just to high volume when we use cleans and presses? That truly challenges maybe that local muscle endurance here.
With my grapplers, I am very, very selective with the exercises I give them
Yeah,
with kettlebells because I don't want to give them kettlebell. Oh, sorry, I don't want to give them exercises that have again the risk to
yeah,
reward ratio. They don't perform snatches very often. The movements that I often give to my grapplers for more conditioning based stuff, but bear in mind, I'm a big believer that grapplers should get most of their conditioning on the mats. In the gym, we want to be focusing on their strength and their very, very specific elements of their conditioning game. So with their conditioning, I tend to do 5 rounds. I tend to find 5 rounds for people is a nice little balance point, and the movement rep ranges could be anywhere between 10 reps up to potentially 30 reps per exercise, depending on what that athlete's needing at
yeah.
that time, and also what they have at their disposal. Because some gyms don't have all the
Yeah.
equipment in the world, and they need to make the best they can out of what they have in front of them. And then if we're going into the strength stuff, as I said previously, it's the dead start work. It tends to be 5 reps and below. And in an ideal world, my clients will have a usage of a big heavy kettlebell, and then we can actually bring in the 1 rep maxes with just varieties of complexes,
Okay.
making the exercises harder, and that way we can go below the 5 reps, but that tends to be within specific parts of their season. I don't want to be hammering their bodies like that when they're so close to a competition. For example, Frankie is competing next week. He's in the Euros. I believe it's IBJJF. I might be wrong there, but I believe it's IBJJF, and he's a purple belt, an exceptional grappler. And leading into this competition, one of the main things was not changing
Okay.
variables. And I'm massive on that, because if you change one variable, it can have a detrimental effect at the competition, because you don't know, or you change multiple variables, sorry, you don't know which one went wrong. So leading up to their competitions, I'm very, very careful with my selection. They tend to go more 10 reps to 15 reps leading up to their competition, more than anything below that, because it's just making sure that they are still hitting that conditioning element while still not completely destroying their
I
bodies.
understand. And also the kettlebell complexes or floors, like you said, are highly popular in those world for the density training. But for all of the coaches who are
Yes.
aiming a specific physiological effect by to maybe improving the work capacity or lactate threshold tolerance. So what is here maybe the coaching rationale behind those linking movements, and maybe crucially, what are your rules for structuring the sets, the reps, and the transition times within a complex, just to make sure it's maximizing the desired conditioning outcome for you?
Complex for me requires fluidity. I don't want a complex that you have to go from A to
Yeah.
B to E. I want to make sure that each movement that is selected, you can perfectly go between. And it's really important that you manage your fatigue with complexes, because it's very, very easy to do a high rep set and your body can be quite severely broken down.
That's true.
But with my own training, for example, I have strength days, I have conditioning days. So for my strength days, I will do between 5 upwards to 10 rounds, depending on how many reps I'm doing in the complex. So if I'm doing a pure strength-based day, it could be only 3 reps a complex. So it could be a swing, it could be a clean, it could be a press, and that will be it. If I'm going into
I
more
see.
endurance,
No, it's okay.
sorry,
It's okay because as you said at the beginning of our conversation, that the grapplers and rugby players here depends on rotational power and anti-rotational stability here. So how
100%.
essential is that dedicated unilateral kettlebell conditioning here, like a single arm snatch or maybe just swing or offset carry in their training modules? So do you find that integrating that this type of conditioning is a very crucial component for both enhancing sport performance and reducing maybe that asymmetrical injury risk? So where is the cat? So
100%. Is the kettlebell is such a nice
okay,
bridge, because within grappling, rotational power and anti-rotational strength are integral. It's integral to not only injury prevention, it's also integral to actually being able to be explosive and also be able to complete so many throws, takedowns, even just simple transitions within movement.
yeah,
And I believe unilateral training should be used more. So many people are focused on bilateral training, which is
yeah,
absolutely fine. But within grappling, there is within any form of fighting, there's very, very little bilateral
that's true.
movement. If you're throwing a punch, it's a single arm. If you're bridging, you're going
Yeah,
onto one side. So to me, it makes perfect sense to actually spend more time on unilateral work than it is to spend on bilateral work. My bilateral work for my grapplers tends to come in their off season, where we're giving their joints a little bit of a
okay.
rest. But that's where I'll bring the bar back into their training. But kettlebell tends to be the unilateral element that is brought
So
into it.
as a main tool here, and many coaches out there, we can see all over the place on the social media right now. They are talking all about the peak performance, but rarely talk about peak recovery. So, for example, a question to you: how do you integrate the kettlebell into the active recovery or deload phases? So, what are the specific, maybe high utility, low impact movement that you would prescribe to maintain those joint mobility and maybe that neurological wakefulness and just general work capacity without adding some systematic significant stress here to the training regimen?
We do a lot of windmills. A lot of windmills. Windmills are a fantastic recovery tool. We also bring in within the active recovery
Mm-hmm.
weeks, it's all about reducing weight. We're not interested in weight. All we are focused on is fluidity of movement and mental
Okay.
clarity. Because not only are our bodies battered, our minds are as well, because we've been training hard. So it's a case of the snatches are quite frequent, windmills
Yeah.
are quite frequent, but it's also movements like the Turkish get up. They're not a staple within my programming, but they are a fantastic exercise for active recoveries, because it's such a whole body movement that it just stems blood flow to everywhere. Everywhere just feels so much better. But there's also a lot of overhead work. Opening this gate is huge. So many of us work at desks where we're hunched over. Grappling is heavily hunched over. Boxing is heavily hunched over. So bringing those shoulders back is massive as well. So
Definitely. Yeah.
obviously the swing, obviously snatch. Yeah, Turkish get-ups, windmills, those types of movement, very, very lightweight, often timed sets, where it's just you set a timer. Every minute time will go off for 10 minutes. Every minute, change
I
the
see.
movement. It doesn't matter what movement it is, just go to the next movement. Whatever feels good that day. Whatever feels good, just select your 10
I
movements and
love
go
it.
for
I
it.
love it, Ash, how you bring it. But I would also like to mention your other side of the SEN sector here. I would like to bring here the full circle. So as you work in the SEN sector, for me is also very inspiring. So how does this accessibility or maybe simplicity and safety of those foundational kettlebell training that you are incorporating, especially in unilateral form as a foundational movement, like Turkish get up that you mentioned it, or maybe like a simple carry, serve you as an exceptional tool here for your clients in that sector? So how does this physical activity specifically contribute to emotional regulation and maybe behavioral support to those people?
So where I work is,
Yeah.
excuse me, is a autistic specialist provision. So we have primary up to secondary students, and one of the things that I run is a boxing enrichment, and an enrichment is basically 2 periods, so 2 hours of time each week where students select something that they do. And one of the things that I do is a boxing enrichment, and within this we do strength and conditioning as well, where the kids can learn the basic foundations of exercise, because often within autistic children, exercise isn't at the forefront
Yeah.
of their mind. So I try to open their minds to what possibility is. And not only has these exercises, or just exercise in general, had a massive positive impact on their mental clarity, their behaviors are exceptional as
Believe, yeah.
well. Like, it just is that emotional regulator. Now within this, a lot of my students have coordination and balance proprioception issues, and unilateral exercises are such a fantastic way of teaching complexity simply. You give something a student one object, they can focus on that one object. You give them 2 objects, I don't know. What they're not realizing is that that single object is actually creating more benefit than two would. And throughout this, like, most terms are between 6 to 8 weeks. The difference in their movement, their body control, is absolutely incredible, because they're learning how to control their limbs, because might not have been taught that before. And then when you bring in the unilateral element of it all, it improves their posture.
Definitely, yeah.
And they don't even realize it's huge. And then you bring in the striking, and it just brings in their confidence. They're just, you can see them blossom. Let's put it that way.
I believe, and I'm really truly inspiring that you're doing that. And I'm also inspired by your story that you very openly and comfortably talk about your battle with depression. So in the context of performance here and coaching, so what role does the physical training, particularly the focus here, high tension work that's also required by kettlebell training, play in that building mental resilience and self-efficiency for yourself and your clients maybe? So what message do you have for others on that journey? So like, what would you mention? What would you share with them?
No matter how tired I get in a session, I say to myself, it can never be as dark as it once was.
Yeah.
No matter how hard that session is, I've gone through harder. And training for me is that stability. It's that me versus me moment. I don't train with anyone else. I train in my garden 365 days a year, no matter what weather it is. I don't care. Half of it isn't even filmed, but I don't give 2 hoots about filming my workouts, because for me, it's that 20 minutes, half an hour of battling this, where no matter what's going on with this, the doubt, the confidence issues, the demons that are going on, it's me versus me at that moment. And so many of my clients battle real dark demons, and they are some of the kindest people you'll ever meet in your life. And it's because they know how bad it can get, and they channel everything into their training, and it's that stability. It's the ability to prove to yourself that you are worthy.
Of course.
And when I trained I used to own a gym. When I used to train there, I was a very, very eccentric lifter, I would shout, I would scream, I would actually be growling, and one of the things I would scream is "prove your worth."
Yeah.
And nobody was hearing what I was saying at that point
Oh.
because I was low. Like I was low. Like I was trying to show, fuck me, like I'm worthy of something. And then I realized this is the thing that's keeping me stable because it's just an
Yeah.
object, but that object will teach you more things about yourself than you'll ever know. Um, and it's key. And I believe that so many people could stop the medication if they exercised
Yeah.
more.
That's definitely true.
And that's a controversial thing to say. It's a very controversial thing to say, but like exercise for so many is you speak to so many people within the grappling world, and they are very. I say this with all the love in the world. We are very screwed up
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be? We turn up week in week out to beat each other up, and we don't get
Yeah.
paid for it. But it's because we're battling things.
Innerly.
And yeah, movement is
Yeah.
therapy. Movement is therapy, and I need to get that on a t-shirt because I say it every single day. But yeah, apologies for the tangent there, but I'm just so
No,
passionate
it's
about
okay.
that.
I'm
I'm
also
so
very
passionate about it.
remarkable with all of the stuff that you have said, and this is also why I choose you. That I wanted to speak with you and to actually that you can share with the people out there and to the world what it actually sticks with you. So yeah, with all of the insights that you share with us today, Ash, it's very been an exceptional experience for me as well. And from that micro application of a kettlebell to improve an elite deadlift or other athletes, grapplers, to the maybe macro impact of the movement on emotional regulation in that crucial sector like a CEN that you are working. So you're truly demonstrating that the best coaches don't worship the equipment. They master the principles and the purpose. And I think in an age of over specialization, your unorthodox strength society provides that critical antidote. It reminds us that the true strength is practically built throughout that adaptability, with that humility and the willingness to use that every tool in the shred that we have. And that includes also facing life's challenges with the same structure and commitment that we bring also to the rack. So I think that you're not just building athletes, you're building anti-fragile human beings. So I want to really thank you again for sharing
Thank
your
you.
expertise here. And before we signed off, because I think we're at the end, so where can your listeners and our listeners connect with the Unorthodox Strength Society here and follow your mission to get people active and educated here? So where they can connect with you.
Yep. So, so you've got two of the best places are YouTube and TikTok. It is Unorthodox Strength on TikTok and the Unorthodox Strength Society on
So
YouTube.
awesome.
And I appreciate all the very kind words, my
Now,
friend.
please,
Thank
I
you.
would just want to say to our listeners, please go follow his journey and explore, please, his content. And of course, to all of the listeners, don't just lift heavier, lift smarter and with intention. So take the concept that Ash laid out here today and audit maybe some new training models, commit to maybe a new kettlebell movement and dedicate 10 minutes a day, maybe just for the next 30 days to mastering it. So I think your performance, your resilience will thank you later. And of course, I appreciate you, Ash, of course, for sharing this experience with us, and to the audience for tuning in.
Thank you.
Until the next time, stay strong, stay smart, and let's learn together. Thanks, Ash.
Take care.
So